You're listening to episode 45 of Present Moment. Welcome to Present Moment, Mindfulness, Practice, and Science. I'm Ted Meissner. Present Moment is a podcast with interviews, conversations, and roundtable discussions. We speak with mindfulness teachers about their newest findings published in peer-reviewed science journals, teachers about their understanding and methods as they work with students of mindfulness, authors about their books and interests, and we also speak with everyday practitioners. The website presentmomentmindfulness.com has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Sunny Wight joins us to speak about the organization Mindfulness First. More and more, we are seeing mindfulness finding ground in our school systems. This ongoing trend is supported by a growing number of non-profit organizations seeking society transformation through youth education. Originally from the UK, Sunny Wight now resides in Arizona, where she spends her work hours as the founder and executive director of the nonprofit Mindfulness First. In 2009, Sunny suffered from a stress-induced breakdown. She used mindfulness not only to heal herself, but also transform her life. Now, her goal is to bring these empowering, actualizing life skills to everyone, especially children. Her organization teaches in school districts to children of all ages and helps to fund their work by offering training in corporations. Our guest today is Sunny Wight. Sunny, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ted.
So glad to have you here. And we're going to talk about your organization, Mindfulness First, in a few minutes. But before we do that, I'd like to get started by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, how you first got involved with contemplative practice.
Okay, I am 40 and I'm from the UK and I've lived here in America for about 16 years. And since I graduated university, I worked in marketing and PR. I worked in corporate America. And I've always been very stressed, always been a very stressed out person. I always thought life was very difficult. And I just lived with life that way. I was always sort of at war with myself, although I didn't know it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, in 2009, I started to feel very unwell. I was beginning the process. It was October of 2009. We just moved house and I was starting to find myself falling asleep all the time. And one day I looked in the mirror and I had lesions in my hairline. And it looked like an allergic reaction to start off with, but I started to get more and more tired, and it turned out to be a very rare form of shingles, and it affected my right side of my body, but particularly the right side of my head, and I affected all of the nerves down the right side of my face and in my hair, and I would have trouble moving my face, and I didn't quite know what to do. I kept finding myself just laying down asleep. I had 2 small children. And I became very depressed and I was basically having a nervous breakdown, long story short. And I found out, I quickly Googled all of that and found out that shingles is caused by stress. And so I knew very, very quickly I'd caused my own sickness.
Yep. And I'd seen some studies on the effects of mindfulness practice on psoriasis, and I was not aware of any scientific study on shingles. So I'm kind of curious as to how that then played out. What came next for you?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would imagine that mindfulness would be great in any situation like that. After my experience, what I did was I looked up the causes of shingles. I knew it, and I discovered it was stress. And so I started to realize that I needed to change my life. And I honestly, I felt like I was dying. I was pretty sure I was dying because I couldn't stand up for very long. I couldn't stop crying all the time. And I thought I'd either really disabled myself on a permanent basis or I was heading out. So I started to try to change my life for the sake of my family and see what I could do. And I looked up stress and I came across Full Catastrophe Living by John Kabat-Zinn, a book I'm sure you know very well. I have a very dog-eared copy that I taken to show all my students, and I asked them all to buy it. And I would sit in bed, lay in bed, and I would just read this book and I would do the practices. And you have to know that before I was sick, I didn't do anything like this. I didn't do yoga. I didn't do anything that made me still and made me quiet. But when I became sick, I think it was like my body was so exhausted. I was in utter silence all the time for the first time in 35 years. And it was powerful. It was so powerful. And as I did the practices in that book, I had literally no idea why they were working, but I knew they were working. So I chugged along with it. I kept doing the practices, and I got a yoga DVD and started to do some gentle movement. And I also started to use music as well. And after about a year of this practice, and there's no MBSR teachers that I knew of here in Arizona at that time. So I was doing it all on my own. And after about a year, I was about 50% better. I knew it was working, and I still didn't totally understand why, but I just carried on because it was working and I knew I was feeling better. And I started to come across mindful schools. I kept seeing them when I was looking at mindfulness online. And so then I started to take training with them online, and very soon I got more and more better, and mindfulness just became my lifestyle. And now here I am 5 years on, and I'd say I'm thriving better than I've ever been in my life. And I believe that mindfulness is something that should be given to everybody, and the sooner the better. So that's why I work with children.
Completely agree, Sunny, and thank you for sharing that story. I know that can be sometimes difficult to recount some of the challenges, particularly like this, that we've had in our lives. So thank you for that. So tell us about how the organization Mindfulness first got started.
So I took my training with Mindful Schools, and I kept thinking, well, I think I'll just, as soon as I feel well enough, I will go into the schools and start teaching at my local schools. And as time went by, I thought, I can't do this on my own. And so I started to hold mindfulness days at my house, and I would invite people over and tell them that I had this vision to bring mindfulness to children and to see if they might be interested. And it was really beautiful. It was wonderful. I can't believe how many amazing mindfulness practitioners I have in this community. And now, of course, they're all part of Mindfulness First. And that all started in October 2013. We had a few gatherings, and so we applied for nonprofit status. And something wonderful happened. We were approached by, someone at our yoga community knew of a fiscal sponsor. So a fiscal sponsor is like a charity that becomes a parent charity to young new charities. And it's a hospital, and they actually took us on almost immediately to parent us as a charity. So we went into business right then. We went to business at the beginning of 2014. And so we started piloting a curriculum that was based on the work of mindful schools. There's a book called Still Quiet Place. There's some curriculum work from Goldie Hawn and the Hawn Foundation. We took all of these wonderful children's curriculums, and we were inspired by them, and we created our own, and we started piloting it back in 2014.
Yeah, and Goldie Hawn's program, I think that's the Mind Up program. Is that correct?
It is. It's really good, and it's really inexpensive too. It's only, she's made it in 3 different sections, different grade levels, and it's only $20 per book on Amazon. So.
Yep, and for folks who are listening to the podcast, many of the books, and I know I have the Mind Up curriculum, is on resources, books on our website. So you can just click on that. That takes you to Amazon. You can get them right there. So, Sunny, tell us about what it is that Mindfulness First does. What is your programming? What do you do?
Okay. Well, our program with the children starts at pre-kindergarten. That's my favorite. They're super fun and they really, really get it. It's wonderful. So we can start as young as pre-K, even a little younger, just getting children to sit still, just to be still. And we take it up to the end of high school. And of course, we have programs for adults as well. But our heart is in the school district. Our heart is bringing up this next generation with mindfulness. So we take an 8-week curriculum because that seems to be, from what everybody else is doing, it seems to be the most effective way to do it. We come in twice a week. So we might come in on Tuesdays and Thursdays into a particular classroom and we'll spend 30 minutes each time. So that will be 16 total lessons. And half of that class will be instruction and half of it will be, we call it mindful art or journaling. So we've created this beautiful journal with a page for every lesson. And the children will get one each. And so they spend time very quietly contemplating what they just learned, documenting what they just learned, and drawing pictures. So I'll tell you how we start the course because it's rather nice. We open with lesson 1, learning about what a mindful body is. We learn mindful breathing. So we just learn to stop. We learn to stop, sit still and notice our breathing. And we will usually show them anchor breathing at that time too. So they immediately have the basic tool for stopping. And the second lesson, we teach them brain science. And you will be amazed. We teach the pre-Ks, the 4-year-olds, the 3-year-olds brain science.
That's amazing.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. And we will teach them the word amygdala. They know what it is. And I think it's really funny that you can ask them about their amygdala, and we leave a poster for them so their teacher can refer back to it, if they're having a moment. And so we teach them the brain science. We teach them about the stress reaction. We'll use words that are a bit more simplified for children, and we might, similar to Goldie Hawn, we'll give the different parts of the brain a funny name, like we'll call the amygdala the caretaker or the security guard, that kind of stuff. So already within that first week, we've given them a foundation that's grounded in neuroscience. And then we move on with the next 14 lessons, as you would expect in any mindfulness series. We'll go from emotions to physical and mental impulses, body scanning, everything's in there. And mindful walking, a whole lesson of mindful art. And we're always reminding them of the neuroscience behind it. So they're always aware of the biology that they're having an effect on, and we're putting them in the driver's seat of that biology. So by the time we leave, after 16 lessons, they're very empowered. The teacher's empowered because we're working with the teacher the whole time as well. We expect them to sit too. So it's a very personal experience as it is in any mindfulness class. And we're seeing amazing results. We've served about 1,000 people in the last 12 months, and most of those were children, about 800 kids. So,
Sunny, what are some of the challenges that you've run across in bringing mindfulness into the school system? Because you've been very successful with that, but I know that there's some things that you've had to do to make sure that happens.
Yes, and this is close to my heart. We've really worked hard to create a good presentation, and we haven't come across any obstacles yet, because within our organization, everybody who plays a part in this organization knows that their terminology must always be tangible. We can't use any words that might be misconstrued, and nothing that might be thought of as woo-woo or weird, no terms that you would have in your yoga class, nothing unusual.
No Sanskrit, no Pali.
Yes, no chanting, nothing unusual that might be misconstrued. So I've only been in one meeting so far where we had a parent in the room who was flicking through Full Catastrophe Living and saw the word Dharma, and she asked a question about it. She was a Christian, and of course, we are always ready for that because we start our presentation with the neuroscience. We start our presentation in a health and wellness-based perspective. always. We talk about how MBSR started. We talk about what it does for veterans. And I tell my story and talk about what it did for a housewife. And we always use the word secular off the bat. That comes straight out when we're first telling you who we are. We are a secular organization that uses clinically created practices that are university studied. And we always bring a good amount of research with us. And it's so plentiful, right? There's so much research now. It's more than we need. And so we always bring our research with us. We bring a brain poster. We do all the neuroscience, and we actually will then take people that we're with through a little breathing practice. And once they know what they're doing to their brain, before they do the breathing practice, and then they do the breathing practice, knowing how they're affecting their amygdala, their prefrontal cortex, and everything that's going on up there, it just shows them that it's all biologically based, and there's no mention of Buddhism or anything that might be construed as religious. And so we've had no obstacles in our work, but I will say that before you approach any school, this is the thing you have to spend the most time on. You have to do your work, do your homework, and come prepared to give them a scientific presentation that is research-based.
Yeah, I think that's perhaps the most important thing to destabilize the misunderstanding that this is just stealth Buddhism and we're just trying to convert people, because that's really not it. And it's always bothered me when people try to convert me to their faith tradition. And I'm not going to do that to anyone else. That's not why we're here. We're here to help people as people, and that's it.
That's right. And we always tell the teachers or the administrators, whoever we're talking to, that what we're doing, we don't have to call it mindfulness. We could give it another name because it's got so much to do with stress and anxiety. We could rename it. We often call it giving the children their user manual, how to be a human being. And it's as simple as that. And maybe as time goes by, we'll change that name. It's certainly been something we've talked about when we bring it into schools. Could we give the lesson a different name so we don't potentially upset anybody? But so far, so good.
Good. Well, I hope it continues along those lines. And I'd like to ask, what are some initiatives that you have that you're working on that you'd like to share with the listeners? Maybe the first Mindful School District. Maybe we could start with that.
I'd love to talk about that, yes. So we're in Cave Creek, Arizona. That's the local school district. Most of the people involved in our organization, their children are in that district. It's a wonderful small town feel. We only have 5 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high school. It's very, very small. So it's really quite doable to make this a mindful school district. And this district's been so welcoming to us. We piloted our programs with them. And just last week, they gave us an award at their district board meeting. And they thanked us publicly in front of everybody who was there, all the public who were there. They thanked us for our partnership, and they discussed the difference that it's made to the children and the teachers, because it's become very tangible. You can really see the difference. So this was wonderful confirmation for us that this school district's hopefully going to happen. All we need now is the funding, and we're working on that. So we've just applied for a grant to fund teaching all of the teachers mindfulness for a whole year. And that will include lots of professional development days, giving them a textbook that we found that we think will be excellent. And hopefully we'd like to come in and teach some of the classrooms too, as we have been doing over the last year. But we feel, given the most effective way to do this is to get to the teachers, because they're all burnt out anyway. And there's plenty of studies that show how mindfulness can help teachers with burnout. So we have a lovely program that we've put together, and we hope to do enough fundraising here to make this happen. So that's our major initiative at the moment. Not to say when we're not working on other schools, though. We actually have a little bit of a waiting list at the moment of schools that want us to come in, but we're very particular about our instructors. As anyone knows who practices mindfulness, it's our practice that teaches. So we have to have well-practiced practitioners to send in to teach everybody. So we have a great team, but we can't do everybody at the same time. We can't do every single school. So The Mindful School District is our priority at the moment. We do have a corporate department where we bring mindfulness into corporations. And the idea behind that is that will help fund what we do in the school district. So we're creating a nice little relationship while reaching out into the community. So that's another one of our initiatives. And we're actually, that reminds me, we do have another great initiative this year. We're creating Arizona's Day of Mindfulness. That's going to be on October 21st. And we're working with professional fundraisers. It's going to be a day of awareness where we hope to bring mindfulness to increasingly over the years, bring it to more and more people. So that's something else that we're doing. We'd love to see that replicated in other states. That would be wonderful.
That would be outstanding. So I hope to see more about that coming soon. And of course, we'll post information about that. I see October 21st. Mark your calendars. I am marking mine down now. Our guest today has been Sunny Wight, founder and executive director of Mindfulness First. You can find out more about Mindfulness First on their website, www.mindfulnessfirst.org. And of course, I'll be linking to that on our episode page for this episode. Sunny, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Ted. It was my pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come visit the website at presentmomentmindfulness.com. You'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. You can comment on the episode page and find show notes and other helpful resources for your mindfulness practice. The shakuhachi music heard on Present Moment is used by permission and through the generosity of musician Rodrigo Rodriguez. His website is linked on the Present Moment website on the About Podcast Music page. Sound editing, mixing, and mastering provided by the generosity of Anthony Dominello of StructureFromSound.com. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on Present Moment.